All right, hello everybody. Joining us this Monday evening on your KSAT Weather Authority app. I'm meteorologist Mia Montgomery here, monitoring as of right now really just the cold that we have left. The precipitation that left an icy glaze on a lot of car windshields this morning, made for a few accidents, unfortunately, especially on those elevated roadways, bridges and overpasses this morning. That has all moved east of our area. We are drying things out, and now we are just left with the cold. And in some instances, mainly into tomorrow morning, the wind that we are going to have to deal with as well. So I just want to come right to your phone here on this appcast. I love that we have this capability just to have a conversation about the weather, go into a bit more depth and detail when it comes to the forecast. And we really like to do these whenever we have inconvenient and impactful weather, much like this Arctic air that is still in place with us here this evening. So hard freezes still expected. We had one this morning, overperformed a little bit. It was very, very cold. We got down into the low 20s, some areas even into the upper teens. And we did have some wind chills in the single digits as well with that light ice, the patchy freezing drizzle and the mist that set in last night and continued into this morning. Again, that precipitation has ended. So we're really going to focus on the winds and the temperatures now moving forward. So hard freezes expected yet again tomorrow morning and even into Wednesday morning. Those thermometers falling into the upper teens and low 20s. But when you factor in gusty north winds, this is really going to be an issue tomorrow morning. Wind chills, also known as feels like temperatures, what it feels like to your body when you step outdoors, those are expected to fall into the single digits here in San Antonio and maybe even below zero by a few degrees into the higher elevations, northern Bexar County and up into the hill country. And this is important because tomorrow morning, a lot of kids are heading back to school, a lot of you heading off to work. So we're really going to need to make sure that we are dressed very appropriately and warmly. We'll go into a little bit more detail about that when we get there in just a few minutes, but go ahead and just put that in your mind. Going to need to make sure that we have the layers on, beanies, hats, the whole 9 yards, but at least road conditions should continue to improve through the overnight and tomorrow because we are drying things out, but can't completely rule out a lingering icy spot or two, mainly on those elevated bridges and overpasses and things of that nature by tomorrow morning, but not nearly as bad as what we saw earlier this morning. In fact, road conditions have already improved for a good chunk of us throughout the afternoon and even into this evening there as well. So here's the latest check here at your authority radar. A lot more quiet than where we were earlier this morning. What you see here near New Braunfels, that's just a little bit of radar noise is what we like to call it, just some ground clutter there near the radar site. But we are all quiet here across south central Texas. I want to broaden this out and get you a look at where that system is now. Freezing rain mixed with some actual liquid rain. Now it's pretty much clear to eastern Texas, moving through Louisiana, and that stretches all the way up into the Tennessee River Valley and closing in on the nation's capital there. We've got some snow near Cincinnati, St. Louis, even Washington, D.C. A very dynamic system. A lot of that Arctic air impacting a good chunk of the lower 48 here this Monday. For us here in south central Texas, yes, it is a lot drier out there, but it is just frigid. We've got this bitter cold in place. Temperatures are in the 20s, 26 over at the airport. It's also 26 out east in Gonzales, 27 in New Braunfels, 25 in Rio Medina. Los Maples has already dipped down into the upper teens, low 20s for places like Kerrville as well as Comfort. We have seen winds already start to pick up, seeing some wind gusts upwards of about 25 to 30 miles per hour in a few locations. So when you factor that in with the cold air in place, take a look at those wind chills right now. Already in the teens for pretty much all of us. Uvalde still holding out, 20-degree wind chill, still very, very cold. Comfort at 21, but take a look at Bernie, Kerrville, wind chills almost in the single digits. So what's going to happen here through the overnight and why this is important is we're actually going to see a reinforcing push of this colder air move in, and it does so via a very gusty north wind. So we're expecting wind gusts upwards of about 30 to 35 miles per hour. And notice your timeline here, that continues into the time a lot of us are stepping out the door tomorrow morning. So A, what you're going to want to do is be careful on the roadways, especially on those elevated surfaces, and B, dress very, very warmly. So here's the good news though about the winds. If there's one good thing that comes out of these winds, they will help help improve and dry out the roads even more so through the process of sublimation. Essentially what that is when we have these winds in place, we also have dry air in place. Those are favorable conditions to see that solid patchy ice, whatever's left out there on area roadways, transition to the gas phase, believe it or not. So because we do have those conditions in place, we expect roads to continue that drying out process, but still, it is a great idea after what we saw earlier this morning with multiple accidents reported. Just take it slow. Give yourself some extra time, especially if you do have a lot of bridges and overpasses on your morning route. That's the plus about the gusty winds, but what's going to affect more of us is unfortunately the flip side of things, kind of the bad news. It's going to make for brutal wind chills come tomorrow morning. So I'm going to step out so you can really just take this in. Very, very cold. This is by about 7 to 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Wind chill values in the single digits for most. And as you head into northern Bexar County, even by the Fair Oaks Ranch area, we could see those wind chills fall a couple of degrees below zero. Very, very cold. So -3 in Bernie, -5 in Kerrville, around 2 to even 4 to 5 degrees for those feels like temperatures tomorrow morning in Bexar County. Not quite as bad the farther south and west that you go, but still very, very cold. So hopefully, if you can, and the kids have to go to school tomorrow morning, if you can take them to school so they don't have to wait out by the bus stop, that would be ideal. But I know that's not feasible for a lot of families just with work schedules and things like that. So this is where just being cognizant and aware of the forecast really comes into play. Dress the kids in layers, multiple layers. We're talking the big, thick, heavy coats. Gloves going to be very important as well. You can put a little beanie on them or some earmuffs, scarves, thick socks, things of that nature. Great idea tomorrow morning, because in some instances, especially if you're standing outside for a while, this can get dangerous. So I definitely just wanted to pop on and give you an update when it comes to that in particular. And of course, we can't forget about actual air temperatures. All of last week, we were telling you, really preaching, make sure all of the hard freeze preparations are complete. And this is why. With temperatures already in the 20s right now, what's actually going to happen overnight as we see that reinforcing push of colder air move in, skies are going to clear. And that's going to help temperatures plummet even more so. So we're expecting teens for most of us in and around the San Antonio area. Around 18 right now is that forecast low for us here in town. But even colder, as what we often see as you get up into the higher elevations. So Comfort, Kerrville, low teens expected. A little bit warmer the farther south and west that you go. But still, I use warmer very loosely because it is just going to be a very, very, very cold start to our Tuesday. So a hard freeze expected in terms of those actual air temperatures. A little bit of a difference though tomorrow compared to what we saw today. Sunshine. A lot of folks probably excited to see the sunshine. It's not going to warm us up too terribly much tomorrow, but I do think it will make a bit of a difference into the early afternoon. Barely and briefly, but I do think we will manage it, climb above freezing. Forecast high around 35 here in San Antonio. So given everything just a little bit of a break into the afternoon for a couple of hours, but also with what we've been talking about, in tune with those higher elevations, Bulverde, Bernie, Comfort, Kerrville, potentially not climbing above that 32-degree threshold. I think it's going to be close, but it's something we'll need to monitor there as well. But for most of us, we should manage it briefly into the afternoon. So mid-30s, I think some upper 30s the farther south that you go. Floresville, Pleasanton, Poteet, Stinson, Devine, all looking to top off right around 37 degrees. All right, so that takes us through our Tuesday. Much drier, but cold and windy in the morning. By the way, those winds will start to subside as we head into the afternoon hours, but we're not finished with the hard freezes. We've got one more in the forecast by Wednesday, upper teens. The thing about Wednesday, though, is that winds are not nearly going to be as gusty as tomorrow, so wind chills, I think, in the teens, not so much in the single digits or even below zero. So still very, very, very cold, but not quite as bad as what we're expected to find out there tomorrow. And then even more sunshine. Look at that, 40s, yes, on Wednesday. And then into Thursday, still chilly, not nearly as cold though in the morning, and then upper 60s. How about that? So really thawing things out by Thursday. But we're not finished with the fronts either. We've got another front that's going to move in either late Thursday or even into the overnight. And that's going to knock our temperatures down a little bit more. Not nearly as bad, though, or as strong as what we're expected to find here over the next couple of mornings and what we've been dealing with today. But you can see that a few more light freezes, not completely out of the question by Friday morning and even into Saturday. Low 30s, maybe some upper 20s there, but honestly, at that point, it'll be a cakewalk after what we are experiencing right now and what we're going to see over the next couple of mornings there, too. By the way, Friday is also going to be pretty windy after that boundary passes us by. And then just looking ahead to late next weekend and even into the early portions of next week, it is looking like we could see a few more rain chances return. So a little bit more of an active weather pattern in terms of precipitation. That looks to move in, but let's focus on one weather event at a time, and let's get through this Arctic cold snap here before we really dive into more details on that. Just know that that's something we will be monitoring even after we start to warm things up later on this week. So for now, that's pretty much the story, okay? Precipitation has ended throughout the remainder of this cold spell. We are going to stay dry here in San Antonio and surrounding areas, but still, if you do have to step on the roadways tonight or tomorrow morning, just be slow and be careful, just to err on the side of caution in case there is a stubborn slick spot that is lingering somewhere on those elevated roadways and things of that nature. But other than that, it's just really going to be the cold that we are going to be dealing with here and the wind chills and the wind by tomorrow morning. So just wanted to pop on your phone, give you a live update, kind of walk you through the forecast, what we're going to be monitoring there as well. We do have official titled products, wind chill advisories for us here in San Antonio that have been issued because of that. That even transitions to a wind chill warning up into the hill country with those sub-zero wind chills possible tomorrow, and then also hard freeze warnings. So if you've seen kind of maybe some push alerts come through on your phone with that, or you've seen it on social media, yes, we do have those in place, but really those are just titled products talking about all of the impacts that you and I have just kind of gone through here as well. So that's pretty much the story here this Monday evening. Football is on right now, but as soon as they are finished with the game on ABC, we will be joining you guys later on tonight on KSAT 12 with the latest check at our temperatures, our wind chills, and those blustery cold conditions in store for tomorrow morning. Thank you all so much for joining me here this evening as well. Hopefully you are staying warm, staying safe, and once again, the latest always can be found right here on your KSAT Weather Authority app, on air and online. Y'all have a great rest of your evening.